I was born in Wichita Falls, Texas, the youngest of 2 children to Susan Freeman at the time. She was the daughter of Gilbert Thomas Honey, Sr. He was a senior master sergeant on Shepherd Air Force Base there in Wichita Falls, Texas. My biological father was out of the picture by the time I was born. He had sexually abused my my sister. Of the 11 children and stepchildren that he had, I was the only one who was not molested by him. My mother was a high school dropout. She had dropped out by the end of 9th grade, beginning of 10th grade. Mother being ill-educated, not having very much background, the best job she could really get at that time was she was a waitress. She had a couple of slip discs in her back, and so her waitressing career was rather short-lived. She started doing some housekeeping for a landlord there in Wichita Falls, and for the better part of 5 or 6 months we were fine living in a quadruplex apartment living situation. What ended up happening was the landlord there decided that he wanted money and reneged on his agreement to let us stay there as long as my mother did the work. And so he took her to court, and I'll never forget the sound of that gavel. As a 10-year-old child, the judge basically sentenced me to a life of homelessness. Consistently since the age of 10 until the age of 20, I was homeless. 2 years I had a reprieve living in Lawton, Oklahoma. My family traveled all over the country during that time frame. We went from Wichita Falls, Texas to Salt Lake City, Utah, to Denver, Colorado, Denver to Wichita Falls again. We left Wichita Falls, we went up half the eastern seaboard to Chesapeake, Virginia. I went to school all over the country. Most of my education was self-taught. My family consisted of my older sister, Jessica, myself, my mother, Susan, and my stepfather, James. We left Chesapeake, Virginia. We went through Indiana, Illinois, into Iowa, where we found out my older sister was pregnant. And she was pregnant with my first nephew, Jonathan Philip Tyler Mandel, who was born with a severe congenital heart defect called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. My nephew died by the age of 5. He passed away, unfortunately. My sister, Jessica, she went on to, and she still is at this point, as far as I know, a raging drug addict. I lived in the state of Utah for the better part of a decade, almost a decade and a half. I'm 33 now. By the age of 18, I had experimented with marijuana and heroin a couple times. By the age of 20, I quit. I got involved with a young woman by the name of Denise Havens. She and I ended up having 6 children together by the time I turned 29, and I caught her cheating on me. At the time, I did not know it. It wasn't until one of my children confronted me about the fact that he had tried to touch my daughter. Found out that he was from Grays Harbor, Washington. He was an unregistered sex offender, convicted of 2 counts of rape of a child when he was 13 years old. And the state of Utah allowed this disgusting bastard to be around my children, and said, oh, as long as he has supervision, he's okay around the children. And she moved him in, and I got moved out. About 3 years before my mother passed away, my stepfather had passed away. He was probably about the hardest thing I've ever went through in my life. And all the issues of my life came crashing down on me at the age of 29. And I said, to hell with it. At that point, I was running my own business, repairing computers. I was doing all right. I had a life, you know, I was happy. And then the loss of my children, coupled with the loss of my mother and every vestige of family that I had that I thought cared about me, I went straight away to a place called the Road Home in Salt Lake City, and sat there and blew what little savings I had on methamphetamines. I decided I no longer wanted to feel, and it took quite a while, almost 3 years, for me to realize that, you know, I'm not feeling anything. I want to feel something, but I don't want to feel what I've had to feel. I ended up going into the New Life program at the Rescue Mission of Salt Lake. I cooked for them for quite a while, did an Easter banquet where I was the head cook for their Easter banquet a couple of years ago. And I've been in recovery now, and recovering from methamphetamine addiction for 20 months of my life. On the 4th of April, it'll be 21 months. I've had a long and screwed up road in my life. I got together with a young lady. We were right outside that gate here for the Chambers Safe Spot, married by Bob and Lynn of the Triple Cross Motorcycle Ministries here in Eugene. And we haven't been legally married. We haven't gotten our legal paperwork for it yet, but we were married. Along with our on-site manager and his lovely wife and a couple of other campers, we're here for the event. I'm currently volunteering at Next Step. Just started that Saturday. I plan on doing that on Fridays and Saturdays.
That's great.
I was appointed as assistant manager working beside Jeremy Jordan, our on-site manager, trying to make sure that the camp is safe for everyone, that everyone feels equal, welcome, and comfortable here. Recently, my wife and I, we've started going to church, and I feel like I'm growing as a Christian within that respect. I am currently the primary caregiver for my wife. She's considerably disabled. She was the first child to live off of the ECMO machine. It's a heart-lung machine. They blew out her left carotid artery, or no, sorry, right carotid artery, and caused a brain hemorrhage, stroke when she was an infant. And she believes she may have had another one as an adult, but she has memory issues. She sometimes has petit mal seizures. She can forget where she's at, forget what she's doing, forget who she's around, forget herself, forget things. And so I do my best to take care of her. Really right now, my biggest plan is to try to find a long-term gainful employment, hopefully as a computer repairman again. It's what I love doing. It's the reason why I'm volunteering at Next Step. Yeah, I went through hell in my life. I've seen people die of ODs. First time I ever saw that happen, I was an 11-year-old kid.
You getting a little toasty over there, man?
I've seen people killing each other on the streets. I've seen some of the worst humanity has to offer. And at the same time, I've seen some miracles that people have performed that you just wouldn't expect it. Like the strangest person would walk up and say, "Hey, I see you're young and you're on the street, you know. Do you need to eat something? Are you hungry? Do you need some new shoes?"
Thank you.
You know, and they'll take care of you. And I want to be able to pass that on someday. To be able to be just driving down the road and see some homeless man standing on the sidewalk and be like, "I've been there." Pull up and be like, "Hey man, you need a cup of coffee? Need something to eat?
Great, Chad.
Need some new clothes? Just get in the car, take care of you."